Humans were not designed for this world. They had no claws, no fur, and no second chance. When they left Africa, there was no civilization ahead. There were no maps, no escape, only cold, only predators, and a world where those who made mistakes never came back. One step meant death, but humans did not turn back. They took fire. They wore the skins of the dead. They walked into fear by choice, because if they stopped, they would disappear. This was the moment when survival stopped being an instinct and became a choice. In this part, you will see how our ancestors entered a world ruled by giants, and how they faced the cold, the predators, and their own darkness. This is the first story of humanity refusing to die. The age of great hunters, around 700,000 years ago. Homo heidelbergensis. In African populations of Homo erectus, natural selection had begun to favor larger brains and more modern facial features. Their thick bones, backward-sloping foreheads, and powerful jaws revealed a species adapted to a harsh, ever-changing world. Compared to its ancestors, it was taller, larger, and more resilient. Thus, a new hominin entered the stage, Homo heidelbergensis. Unlike those before it, this species did not settle for merely surviving in the shadow of giants. It dared to hunt them. Its mind could now plan ahead, and social cooperation reached a level never achieved before. Alone, a single human stood no chance against a lion, but an organized group could form a shared plan. The strength of one multiplied through the sharpened tip of a spear, shared fear transformed into courage moving as one. To hunt giants required more than physical strength. It demanded perfect coordination, shouts, signals, and gestures woven together with precision. Hunting was no longer a matter of chance. It had become a deliberate method: encircle, apply pressure, wait for the right moment. Coordination gave birth to proto-language. A great hunt, in turn, brought rules and leadership with it. As populations grew, Homo heidelbergensis began to move beyond their original lands. The Sahara, now a desert, was once vast green grassland crossed by great rivers. They were no longer just surviving, they were expanding. Once, massive lakes like ancient Mega Chad, even larger than the Caspian Sea, dominated the landscape. Across these lands, where open savannas and sparse woodlands coexisted, roamed Civatherium, an extinct relative of the giraffe, and the giant camel Camelus thomasi, larger than any camel living today. Homo heidelbergensis left Africa through what is now Egypt and Israel and reached Europe. It was a world shaped by the fluctuations of the ice ages, a land of dense forests, cold climates, and sharp seasonal extremes. Yet H. heidelbergensis possessed all the abilities needed to survive. After settling in Europe, climatic and geographic barriers separated them from their relatives in Africa. Over hundreds of thousands of years, they adapted to the cold and evolved into a new species capable of hunting. Europe's great megafauna. The world was about to meet the true rulers of the Ice Age. 400,000 years ago, a new human form was emerging, Homo neanderthalensis. This new species, the body of the Neanderthal, had adapted to cold climates, harsh hunting conditions, and long-term endurance. Shorter, broader, and more compact, this build reduced body surface and preserved heat far more efficiently. Their bones thickened, their muscles grew stronger. With a sloping forehead and pronounced brow ridges, they carried a strikingly rugged appearance. Yet their mental capacity was remarkably complex. This was the anatomy of a hunter adapted to confront colossal and deadly animals, like the woolly mammoth. At close range, for days, they would observe the herds from a distance, learning their movement patterns, migration routes, and vulnerable points. The Neanderthal clan would choose the mammoths that nature had already marked as weak. The old, the slower, the weakened. With shouts, fire, and hurled spears, they would pressure the herd and isolate their chosen prey. They hunted with spears designed for close contact. Using their full body weight, they drove their spears deep inside. Yet the Neanderthals did more than survive, they began to create. Archaeological findings reveal that they used eagle talons as necklaces. These may have served as status symbols, protective charms, or ritual objects. For many years, cave art was assumed to belong exclusively to Homo sapiens. However, discoveries made in caves in Spain challenged this view. There, handprints were discovered, created by placing a hand against the wall and blowing pigment over it. Dating back to a time before Homo sapiens, stalactites and stalagmites marked with red pigment were also uncovered. There is also evidence suggesting that Neanderthals may have produced music, or at least created rhythmic and melodic sounds. In the caves where they sheltered from Europe's harsh winters, perforated bones were found. Some researchers believe these may have been flutes made from the femur bones of cave bears. The Neanderthal brain was the same size as that of Homo sapiens, and sometimes even larger, however, its shape was different. They were innate experts, capable of retaining an extraordinary amount of knowledge about their environment and the animals within it. The Neanderthal hyoid bone, the vital structure that supports the tongue and enables speech, was almost identical to that of modern humans. This suggests they possessed the physical capacity to produce a wide range of sounds. Even if they did not speak as we do, they likely had the capacity to develop a proto-language with its own rules and nuances. Their voices were likely deep and low in resonance, containing vowels and consonants similar to our own. Despite being strong and well adapted to the cold, around 45,000 years ago the Neanderthals encountered a new species, and the process of decline began. At times, a small Neanderthal group may have noticed a band of tall, foreign-looking individuals. Sapiens. The discovery of wounds inflicted by sapiens weapons on Neanderthal fossils clearly indicates that violence occurred. Their first reaction was likely to notice the physical differences and respond with suspicion and fear. There were probably shouts, threatening gestures, and displays of weapons, until the smaller group withdrew. Competition over the remains of a large animal could easily escalate into a bloody conflict. The Neanderthals held the advantage in physical strength and close combat. Sapiens, on the other hand, relied on projectile weapons that allowed them to attack from a safer distance. Both species were apex predators, standing at the top of the food chain and dependent on the same resources. It may have been the first war in history, a continent-wide conflict between sapiens and Neanderthals, lasting thousands of years. Like lions, territorial predators can be extremely ruthless toward their rivals. To defend the domain, they may kill competitors and even their young. From an ecological perspective, it is entirely consistent that two intelligent, predatory human species would have behaved in similar ways. Genetic and archaeological evidence indicates that the Neanderthals were pushed from their territories, cut off from vital resources, and, over time, gradually disappeared. They could not withstand sapiens, for sapiens had developed a more advanced language, could form larger communities, and made use of more sophisticated technologies. Yet the Neanderthal did not disappear entirely. Part of their lineage merged with Homo sapiens. All modern humans outside of Africa carry between 1% and 4%. Neanderthal DNA. While the complete merging of entire communities was rare, the integration of individual members was highly likely. A young and solitary Neanderthal, perhaps the sole survivor of a predator attack, may have encountered a group of sapiens. Accepted with compassion, and over time, he became part of a modern human community. His unusual appearance and powerful physique, especially if he was a skilled hunter, may have inspired attraction.
Oh.
Children born of sapiens and Neanderthals were a bridge between two worlds. They inherited their father's resilience and their mother's agile intelligence. Thus, the Neanderthals faded from the stage of history after our species reached Europe. But the origin of modern humans was not in Europe, it was in Africa, beneath burning suns and across vast, endless savannas. The story is not over yet. To discover what comes next, turn on notifications and subscribe. Because this journey has only just begun. Axiom Earth.